We got old rules in a new day scene. Same big principles, different machine. The how keeps changing, tech moves fast. So we check the settings, cut the deadwood past. Special vote stacking like a tower of bricks. Lane enrollments, doing overtime tricks. Used to be 2 weeks, now it's 3. If we do nothing longer, you'll see. So we tighten the timing, smooth the lines, start the process earlier, read the signs. 13 days before the big show starts, get your name right where the roll book charts. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? No treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. Auto updates, moving addresses along. Go data, keeping details strong. Roll stays current between each race. Less last minute chaos, faster pace. Advanced voting, 12-day run. Make it formal, job gets done. No costly letters sent by post. More modern system, cut the toast. And prisoners sentenced, no vote while inside. Consequences land on the other side. Serious offending held to account. Serve your time, then re-enroll back on the mount. Mental health detention kept the same. 3 years plus, that's still the frame. And promoted details, safer to share. Less risk, less harm, more fair. 13. We got old rules in a new day scene. Same big principles, different machine. The how keeps changing, tech moves fast. So we check the settings, cut the deadwood past. Special vote stacking like a tower of bricks. Lane enrollments, doing overtime tricks. Used to be 2 weeks, now it's 3. If we do nothing longer, you'll see. So we tighten the timing, smooth the lines, start the process earlier, read the signs. 13 days before the big show starts, get your name right where the roll book charts. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? No treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. Auto updates, moving addresses along. Go data, keeping details strong. Roll stays current between each race. Less last minute chaos, faster pace. Advanced voting, 12-day run. Make it formal, job gets done. No costly letters sent by post. More modern system, cut the toast. And prisoners sentenced, no vote while inside. Consequences land on the other side. Serious offending held to account. Serve your time, then re-enroll back on the mount. Mental health detention kept the same. 3 years plus, that's still the frame. And promoted details, safer to share. Less risk, less harm, more fair. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline. We got old rules in a new day scene. Same big principles. principles, different machine. The how keeps changing, tech moves fast, so we check the settings, cut the deadwood past. Special vote stacking like a tower of bricks, lane enrollments, doing overtime tricks. Used to be 2 weeks, now it's 3. If we do nothing longer, you'll see. So we tighten the timing, smooth the lines, start the process earlier, read the signs. 13 days before the big show starts, get your name right where the roll book charts. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? No treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. Auto updates, moving addresses along, go data, keeping details strong. Roll stays current between each race, less last minute chaos, faster pace. Advanced voting, 12-day run, make it formal, job gets done. No costly letters sent by post, more modern system, cut the toast. And prisoners sentenced, no vote while inside, consequences land on the other side. Serious offending held to account, serve your time then re-enroll back on the mount. Mental health detention kept the same, 3 years plus, that's still the frame. And promoted details, safer to share, less risk, less harm, more fair. 13 days, 13 days. Get enrolled before the deadline gates. 13 days, 13 days. Is it speed or democracy at stake? Treats at the ballot, no chips, no tea, no freebies near the box, keep it clean. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. You should be ashamed, 'cause here's the truth. You made it harder for everyday youth under urgency. Rights get clipped, democracy's ladder missing rungs that slipped. They say timelessness like it's the crown, but it's people showing up, don't shut them down. 100,000 turned up last time, now you call them drop kicks in the grave. If your first vote's turned away at the door, you don't come back, seen that before. So I push this if it won't speed the count. Feels like tilting the field, stacking the mound. Had other options, read the page, but chose the cut, set the stage. Harder to vote, easy to claim, but we see the game behind the name. 13 days, 13 days. Who gets locked up when life derails? 13 days, 13 days. Is it order or a vote or jail? Oh, negotiate weeks for a coalition seat, but won't spare a few days for democracy. 13 days, 13 days. Tell me who wins when the rules all change. If voting didn't matter, why shape the flow? Shadowy influence, let it show. Unemployment rising, youth shut out, yet you close the door when they come about. Human rights says it plain and clear, foundational right, don't interfere. So why not let updates do their work? Right on 26, don't jerk the yoke. And food at a Merry Monarchy Tanga, not buying votes with sausage fang and 6 grand secret. Why hide decide the stream. Let real humans fund the democratic dream. For the global jeopardy, please don't bluff. Enrollment's a legal duty, simple stuff. Special votes take 10 times the time. Projected to 1 million future crimes. Treating near the booth, that's not okay. Menorah while lessons clear the way. We want results that don't take weeks. Confidence matters, system speaks. People vote for change, not limbo slow. If you know the cutoff, you'll sort it go. Give an inch, take a mile.
Are you ready for the 2026 general election?
It's in the ballot production present.
Bringing Kiwis election 2026.
Covering electorates from Cape Reinga in the north to Stewart Island in the south, everywhere in between.
Available not just in your community hall, but also to watch from the comfort of your own home.
Watch live and watch later.
Let's It's in the Ballot bring you election 2026.
Covering electorates from Cape Reinga in the north to Stewart Island in the south and everywhere in between.
And in Givealittle, not just in your community hall, but also to watch from the comfort of your own home.
Watch live and watch later. The way of accessing us is limitless.
And welcome back, and welcome Laura.
Hello.
I like the picture. It feels like that's down the road. That looks like Wellington Harbour.
Yes.
So you try to say you're temporarily in Wellington at the moment?
No. No, I just felt like a change of scenery.
Fair enough. And how's the fantastic parts of the Christmas holidays? Any submissions have you written?
No. I've been totally burnt out, man. I've spent the holidays just trying to catch up on so much stuff that I just haven't had time to sit down and really just write submissions.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, I've still got to figure out what can I write submissions on as well, trying to with everything to try and manage it in there. Shall we get to Lord Alex's super chat?
Yeah, I haven't really got much to say on it. Just wanting Sam and Laura's opinion on the Manage My Health debacle, and it shows why the Privacy Act needs to be reviewed, and the MOH mandate encryption standards, and also the health records were stolen. Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly concerned about our nation's encryption and security services. Clearly we need to have a review into it. I'm more concerned about things like, military stuff and police stuff and other stuff being potentially leaked on the internet.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of a concern. I mean, health records are still isn't say as something that isn't lowered, but all of it's still pretty concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting part is mentioning that Northland seems to be a very highly affected area. That has raised even more concerns.
Yeah, Northland. Waikato also seems to be subject to a lot of cyber attacks as well.
Yeah.
Near DHB.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, where has gotten and where has probably not quite faced the same pressure.
It's like, look, we need to update from using systems that rely on Windows XP. You know, it's pretty clear that our services are really fucking out of date.
Yeah. We need to be like using Ubuntu or Linux.
Yeah. And
actually, one government agency that's never had any of the problems is the Electoral Commission. Wow. They have their issues, but they don't seem to have security breaches.
Probably because they're super low tech.
I don't know. It's an interesting one on it. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm probably not going to be the most enthusiastic today. I don't know. I've got a sick cat, and he's just run out through the door, and I've been looking for him all day, and I don't know where the hell he's gone.
Oh, yay.
Well, I got to take him to the vet.
Oh, I feel sorry for your wallet.
Yeah. So that's been my Christmas.
Yeah, it's a pretty awkward time. I'll be honest. Sorry, I didn't drive directly past your house, but you can probably guess where I drove out to have a couple of days away from Wellington.
Pongaroa?
Yeah, Steve's place. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and he did ask me, "Oh, did you stop off at Laura's on the way up?" And I was like, "No." And then on the way back, and said, "You going to stop at Laura's?" I said, "I really need to get back to Wellington. I've got a paper in to do."
Yep.
Yeah, which had been remarkably quick recently because quite a few subscribers are on holiday. Yeah. Okay, let's kick off with the emergency. It's the Emergency Management Bill number 2. And we'll kick off with good old Mr. Mark Mitchell.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed.
Resource Management, Duration of Consents Amendment Bill, third reading.
I move that the Emergency Management Bill...
The Honourable Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I move that the Emergency Management Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Governance and Administration Committee to consider the bill.
Was there a legislative statement there, Mr Mitchell?
The bill will replace the Civil Defence...
Mr Mitchell, was there a legislative statement? You were...
That's a great start.
I present the legislative statement, Mr Speaker.
That legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the Parliament website. Honourable Mark Mitchell.
This bill will replace the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act 2002 and make a number of changes which respond to the government inquiry into the response...
You're now required to finish moving the bill. Sorry, just to...
I move that the Emergency Management Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Governance and Administration Committee to consider the bill.
Thank you.
The bill will replace the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act 2002 with a number of changes which respond to the government inquiry into the response to the North Island severe weather events of early 2023. Mr Speaker, I want to acknowledge the work done by colleagues across Parliament who also recognise the need to strengthen our emergency management system. There are two areas, Mr Speaker, that I feel are really important for us as a Parliament to work together on. One is national security and the other is emergency management. And firstly, I want to acknowledge the outstanding NEMA team, right from the leadership through to our policy team, who have worked very long hours, burning the midnight oil, to work on this bill and bring an outstanding bill to the House, right through to our people that deploy, that provide advice, that work on education and man our information centre 24 hours a day, keeping us updated with information as it unfolds around our country. We are a country that will continue to be hit with weather events. I want to acknowledge the mayors, the chief executives and our civil defence controllers and all the stakeholders who have been engaged with us on the development of this bill. I want to acknowledge them and their hard work and their engagement. I want to acknowledge Camilla Bellich and Francisco Hernandez for the work that they have done with us on this bill in a very bipartisan way. Camilla, I want to make a special mention to you. Not only has she worked very closely with me on this bill, she is on the ground at several of the events that I've been to that have been local states of emergency, and I appreciate your engagement because I think that in terms of emergency management we all need to be working together on that, and I know that's appreciated when you're on the ground also. I want to acknowledge the previous ministers, Kieran McAnulty, who provided me with a seamless takeover when I took over from him, Kerry Allen, who continues to work in emergency management through the iwi Leaders Forum and has worked very well with us, and Marama Royal. I want to acknowledge them. Penny Henry is a previous minister. Chris Farfoy, who I've done a lot of work with, who now has a leadership role with our insurance agents companies and has done a lot of work with me. Nathan Guy, Jerry Brownlee. Can I acknowledge Jerry Brownlee, who has given me a lot of extremely useful advice, especially around recovery. I don't know if there's another minister that has been in this House in our recent history that has had to deal and do the heavy lifting around recovery, and I want to thank him and acknowledge his outstanding guidance and advice for me in this role. And finally, I want to acknowledge Nikki Kay, and I'll finish there, but I wanted to mention Nikki Kay because I think the whole House would agree that you would not have found a more passionate Minister of Civil Defence than Nikki Kay, and the astounding amount of work that she got through in the 3 years that she was Minister. Mr Speaker, the previous Emergency Management Bill proposed a range of sensible changes that we've taken forward, but it predated the inquiry's final report, so it didn't go far enough to address lessons from Cyclone Gabriel and the Auckland anniversary floods. The frequency, complexity and consequences of recent emergencies have highlighted the importance of updating the legislation to improve how we manage risks, prepare for, respond to and recover from emergencies, and empower and support communities. New Zealand's approach to emergency management is based on 3 key principles. First, we need to pay attention to all hazards, natural and man-made. Second, we need an end-to-end approach to managing the risks from those hazards. That means taking action across the 4 Rs: risk reduction, readiness, response and recovery. Third, all parts of society have a role to play in emergency management. Risks should be managed by those who are best placed to manage them. This was an intent of the CDM Act, and this bill follows the same philosophy, but the inquiry and other reviews have made it clear that New Zealand has not achieved what Parliament envisaged when the Act was passed in 2002. The inquiry, as well as submissions on the previous bill, informed our reform objectives and proposals, which were publicly consulted on earlier this year. That consultation has led to over 20 substantive changes being made through this bill, in addition to a general overhaul to modernise the Act. The majority of submitters agreed to our reform objectives, which are to strengthen the role of the communities in iwi, Māori and emergency management, provide for clear responsibilities and accountabilities at the national, regional and local levels, enable a higher minimum standard of emergency management, minimise disruption to essential services and ensure agencies have the tools to do their jobs effectively when an emergency happens. I'd like to touch on some of the most significant changes the bill will make to deliver on those objectives and make a real difference on the ground. To strengthen the role of communications and iwi, Māori and emergency management, the bill provides membership roles for iwi, Māori, rural communities and the wider community on coordinating executive groups. These groups are currently made up of local authority chief executives and senior representatives from emergency services in each area. They are responsible for advising the local political level of emergency management. Having a seat at the table will give iwi, Māori, rural communities and the wider community a direct role in informing what their Emergency Management Committee does to reduce risk, get ready for emergencies and respond and recover when they happen. The bill also requires engagement with iwi, Māori and the wider community, particularly those who may be disproportionately affected by emergencies, whether they have existing vulnerabilities or different needs that don't suit a one-size-fits-all approach. Emergency Management Committees and the Director-General of Emergency Management will be required to identify these groups, such as disabled people, seniors and our culturally and linguistically diverse communities, and engage with their representatives when developing regional and national emergency management plans. The bill also provides for more clarity about roles and responsibilities at the national, regional and local levels of emergency management to ensure faster decisions are made by the right people. The need for role clarity has come up in the inquiry and other reviews, and I've seen it firsthand at emergency events over the past 2 years. It is absolutely critical that responsibilities and accountabilities are clear. Any confusion about who is making decisions causes unacceptable delays during a response. Local government has key roles in emergency management. The vast majority of emergencies play out at a local level, and other legislation gives local authorities many of the levers to manage hazard risks. Councils know their own communities best when an emergency cuts communication and knocks roads out of action. Local resources may be all that's available to respond for the first few hours. But the bill retains committees of the councils in each region. Each exists to provide economies of scale and enable regional coordination of emergency management. However, it puts more emphasis on councils' individuals' responsibilities by creating specific roles for regional emergency committees and their local authority members, making mayors primarily responsible for declaring states of local emergency and recovery transition periods within their own districts, and requiring every territorial authority to have a district controller and district recovery manager with a clear line of accountability to the council's chief executive. Given territorial authority chief executives an explicit mandate to coordinate resources provided by other agencies in the lead up to an emergency and over the long-term recovery is essential. The bill also addresses current ambiguity around who is in charge during an emergency by formalising and clarifying the concept of lead agencies as the central government agencies responsible for responding to emergencies caused by specific hazards. Lead agencies will be required to keep the Director General of Emergency Management informed of situations where there is or may be an imminent threat to an emergency. In turn, the bill places a duty on the Director General to inform the Minister about such situations. Timely and reliable information is a key part to determining whether a situation may meet the threshold for a response under the bill and provides a better chance of addressing the situation before it escalates. Regional emergency management plans are key instruments for driving action across the 4 Rs at the local government level. They identify the hazards and risks to be managed by each emergency management committee and set out the policies, projects and other necessary measures to manage them. These measures could include things like identifying bylaw changes, setting requirements on each of the committee's councils to build their response capability, or agreeing to progress joint risk reduction initiatives. Mr Speaker, I wanted to finish my speech today in an acknowledgement to an outstanding NEMA manager in the Christchurch area, Rochelle Faimalo. Rochelle passed away peacefully on the 13th of August this year, wife to Joe, mother to Azure, Zion, Quest and stepmum to Georgia. She quite simply she typified the quality of the people, the qualities that our emergency management people right across the country bring to that role. I met her during the Port Hill fires, where she played a critical leadership role. This will be the first Christmas that their kids don't have their mum. She was 40 years old. She was a much loved member of the NEMA team, and she was very passionate about this bill coming to the House, which she was briefing mayors on right up till June. So I wanted to acknowledge her, and I wanted to let the family know that we're thinking of them during the Christmas break. Thank you.
Okay, Sam, you go first.
Okay, so definitely not the start I was expecting him to sit down there and list off and rattle and thank all the past ministers in the lead up. That was something I was not expecting. I have run the Hansard for ChatGPT. It has bring up what the key points of what the bill was mentioning. It strengthened the role of iwi Māori, rural communities and the wider community by providing them with a formal membership on the regional coordinating executive group, requiring meaningful engagement with communities, particularly groups disproportionately affected by the emergency, such as disabled people, seniors, cultural and linguistic diverse communities. Clarifying roles and responsibilities at a national, regional and local level to enable faster and more efficient decision-making during emergencies. It also is reinforcing the role of local government by giving mayors primary responsibility for declaring local states of emergency and by requiring clear accountability from district controllers and recovery managers. Formalising the concept of lead agency for specific hazards and improving information sharing between lead agency, the Director General of Emergency Management and the Minister, and strengthening regional emergency management plans as a tool to drive coordination actions in all the 4 Rs.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I try to limit how much I put into ChatGPT, especially I prefer to read the actual document because one thing I have noted, because I have run documents through ChatGPT and stuff like that in the past, and it often skews a certain bias.
Yes.
Yeah. So it will make the bill sound really good, but it won't unless you really ask specifically about what are the potential issues of the bill. It won't go over the critical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is why I always encourage people, please do read the documents. It's also part of the reason why I'm very tired all the time, because I'm always reading documents.
Yeah, you do a thorough job, and so that was me pulling it off. Like, okay, how do we get a summary up there? When you haven't read it yet?
Yeah, but what ChatGPT gave there is not entirely incorrect. I mean, look, what it's basically saying there is what National hopes to get out of the bill rather than what the bill will actually do. And that's a key thing you need to watch for when you're using AI summaries, is it will tell you essentially what the party bring it forward is hoping it will achieve, rather than what it will actually achieve legislatively, unless you ask it really specific questions.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, if we go over and we look at what the bill is trying to solve, So back in 2023, the Minister for Emergency Management established a government inquiry into the response to the North Island severe weather events. And that inquiry found that New Zealand's emergency management system is not fit for purpose. It lacks the capacity or the capability to deal with significant emergencies that affect multiple regions at once. So you're going to find my commentary on this stuff really boring because I actually agree with the bulk of what Mark Mitchell said. There is actually, there's nothing there I can really object with. He is correct when he says that the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act that was passed in 2002 is not fit for purpose. Now there were a couple of notes that I took down about the changes that this bill is going to do. Yeah, so it mostly has to do with it builds upon. This bill is going to be building upon the legislative framework established by the original bill, so the CDEM Act, by strengthening the role of communities in iwi Māori in emergency management. So there's going to be a lot more consultation, local iwi consultation about how to best respond to an emergency, and we saw that with Cyclone Gabrielle and the steps that iwi took to manage the emergency that had occurred. And this should be pointed out that local councils are largely responsible for funding their own readiness activities. But councils have strained resources and competing priorities. So it makes it difficult to invest in maintaining infrastructure and much needed activities like readiness planning and capability building and preparation of emergency centres.
Especially when you've got diverse population bases such as like your district, Taurua, where
yes.
effectively trying to maintain it is just as difficult as trying to maintain the roadie network.
Yeah, effectively. I mean, there is an advantage that rural communities have, that we tend to have a lot more skills involved, a lot more skills with dealing with if a tree falls over on a road, we can go clear it up. We've got tractors, we can go out there and just get it out of the way. Whereas you don't have that in a city.
No, you don't. Most people wouldn't even sit there and know how to work a chainsaw. I mean, they'll probably bring out noise control about the noise of a chainsaw before they'll actually work out how to use one.
Yeah. So again, this bill is going to be building upon what's already there. It's going to be a lot more consultation, active consultation on the ground. I support that. There was this interesting little factoid I can bring up. So did you know that New Zealand is actually the second most exposed country in the world to natural disasters after Bangladesh?
I didn't think it would be that high.
Yeah, we are that high.
Yeah, I knew we were exposed, but that number is quite up there. But yeah, the fact that our nearest, the next one is Bangladesh, which is something that I wouldn't have expected Bangladesh to actually be that other, like how close we would be.
Yeah, the Bangladesh is the top one. Yep, on the list, and that's according to Lloyd's of London list, which is one of the world's oldest continuously running journals. And a lot of insurance companies and stuff utilize that list. So we're actually second. And the estimated average cost of natural disasters to our economy is 0.7% of the GDP per year. So when you look over that 20 years, the cost of recovering from natural hazards is 4.3% of the GDP per year. And this cost is going to grow. So
yes.
our country's largest general insurer, IAG New Zealand,
yes.
This proportion of our GDP being spent, this is about as how much as we're spending on education, superannuation, and purchasing health services. So as separate spending things, we spend about 4.3% on.
Now, is that collectively together, or is that what?
Separately.
So we're effectively spending the same amount on recovery from natural disasters as we spend on education.
Correct. So, and there was some very interesting modelling. So by the Treasury, a severe earthquake in Wellington could permanently lower our GDP by 3%, and recovering would increase net crown debt by about 12%. So for every dollar, this is the reason why Mark Mitchell has been quite thorough on this bill, because for every dollar spent on disaster preparedness, international evidence suggests that at least $4 can be saved in disaster response and recovery costs. So, when it's a 4-to-1 ratio in terms of costs, yes, you want to upgrade the legislation so we can save money.
Yeah, and it also comes in the same boat with insurance companies, all of that. Yes, like a building that is up to a certain standard that is less likely to be damaged in an earthquake means that the insurer has a lower risk.
Correct. My main concern with this bill, though, is that I'm concerned that with the abolishment, or with the regional councils being
Because
going bye-bye.
they are the main. I'm not sure what the Horizons equivalent is, but the Wellington one's called REMU.
Yep.
And it's basically it's a weird one of not in a state of emergency. It's a division of the regional council, but it has localised branches coming from the DITSI and the district councils when it is activated in the event of emergencies. Yeah, it's a weird one to sit and do it, because also REMU, if they can't, they also go to other areas. So, I mean, I know my friend John Kopaka, one of the things was volunteer firefighter, the other one was search and rescue.
Yep.
They will grab you from anywhere in the country for search and rescue. They don't give a damn whether you're local or not. They will pair you with locals to help search someone. And that is another emergency thing that REMU does cover, is search and rescue. So if someone goes missing in the back of the Tauruas, search and rescue other people. That's an emergency that isn't as say declared a state of emergency. It's just a, how do I call it? It's an emergency response, but a bit like ringing an ambulance when someone has a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my concern here, is that basically offloading a lot of what the regional council did to local councils and to iwi. Is the government going to consistently ensure that the resources are going to be there for those groups? That's just one of the things that you got to consider when you start decentralizing everything.
Yeah.
Thoughts on this comment?
Just a quick note. Was it the emergency management? I'm working on another pitch to the media at the moment around us because it doesn't address the evacuation centres not suitable for disabled people. Yeah, that is true, because not necessarily the locations of where people the nearest one may not be accessible. I can confirm the local evacuation centre in Newtown is actually accessible because it's the Newtown School Hall. But that's because it's held in a school that actually has to have the accessibility requirements. But that is a good point, that the nearest place may not be the accessible place.
Yeah, that's right. And our town's got that sorted out too. But yeah, it was like one of the things that we found that during the storm that came past the other, about a month, back in October, that blew everything over.
The one that destroyed your greenhouse.
Yeah, that one. Is that a lot of people were going, oh, shoot, we don't actually have the means to actually support this town if we're completely cut off, which can happen. Thankfully, we're in an area where we can just get the tractor out and get rid of the trees. But if the rivers...
and you've actually got a pretty relatively flat, not near state highway. So your state highway is actually relatively flat with it doesn't wind around hills. It's not like the Manawatu Gorge. It's not like the Rimutakas.
Yeah.
It's, if push comes to shove, you're still likely to actually get yourself to Marston Hospital.
Well, that's the thing. You may not be able to get to Marston Hospital. We may not have enough alternative routes. Like, we got one alternative route going through around Morrisville, around the back of Puka, around Mount Bruce.
Yes. Yeah.
But, if that's also cut off, we're going to have to rely on helicopters to cover.
Yeah. That is a point, yeah. But, your likelihood of being cut off is a lot less. But that also depends on what it is, where you are in the country. I mean, if we sit there and change it to where Steve's place in Pongaroa, oh God, that's a different story.
Yeah, Pongaroa,
Yeah, like that's one of what do you call it? Like, it's like of the different roads in, I would rate them as I would not want to tow my coffee cart on them roads.
Yeah, like quite often when something happens out of Pongaroa, it's always helicopters going out.
Yeah, which makes sense. It's yes, and I think the local pub is one of the emergency locations you go to as well.
Yeah, I would like to know from Blake if they have the information about how many evacuation centres are not suitable for disabled people, because I know that my one is, and
that's the community hall, the one that we did our shows at.
Yep. That is the point of emergency, and that's wheelchair accessible. But yeah, if Blake knows how many areas in New Zealand are not suitable for disabled people, that would be really interesting to know, because I didn't read that in the RIS. That point wasn't even brought up.
Yeah.
And I read through the inquiry. I can go double check while we're listening to other speeches. I'll go do that actually.
And we'll get on to Camilla Balich, our friend.
Yep.
Question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Camilla Balich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to acknowledge the contribution of the Minister and also echo our condolences to Rochelle's family. I know that the work on the Port Hills fire was really exceptional, and as the Minister will know, or anyone who's worked in this area, the people who are involved in emergency management around New Zealand are really exceptional people. Often it's a career that they end up being in for most of their lives, and it's not because of anything that they personally gain from it. It's from really a feeling of service and contribution to New Zealand, and so we're very grateful to them, and it's always sad to hear of one of our colleagues who has departed. So I want to acknowledge that family. Also want to acknowledge and reiterate the acknowledgement that the Minister made of people who've been involved in this bill. This bill is something that has gone over a series of governments, and that is the nature of emergency management. Emergency management is something that is exceptionally important to New Zealand and exceptionally important to our communities, and we never know who's going to be in government when an emergency strikes, and all that we can hope on either side of the House is that we can do everything that we can and that we have the best processes in place. And so this is something that is a genuine area, I think, of bipartisanship, and something that we on the side of the House and in the Labour Party take very seriously and have done when we've been lucky enough to hold those ministerial portfolios as well. And I know many of those previous ministers hold a very lot of interest still in this portfolio because of the importance that it has to New Zealand and to their communities. So I want to acknowledge the Minister for your work here as well, and also your team, especially Bailey in your office, who works very hard to make sure that we're all aware across the House of emergencies when they happen to. And I think that kind of approach is really what this bill is meant to legislate for. It's a much more of a all of government rather than little sectors working on their own. So this is an important bill, and it's kind of the antithesis really to the previous bill we were discussing, Mr. Speaker. This bill has really had its genesis and changes that were seen to be needed in the 2002 Act. There's a consensus, I think, from everyone that piece of legislation is no longer fit for purpose anymore in New Zealand, and various governments have, and there's been so many reviews, and various governments have looked into trying to amend this. And I suppose the issue that we have is we keep having emergencies and we keep realising that there are issues in our system, and I think it's important to acknowledge that we will never have a perfect emergency management system, and we will never be able to do everything, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do everything that we can and that we shouldn't learn every lesson that we can in order to be better prepared. So when we were in government, Labour was in government, we did introduce a bill, and we're happy to see that a lot of the sensible, pragmatic suggestions that were in that bill have been carried through into this new piece of legislation as well. And the big thing that happened in between that introduction of that bill was the North Island weather events. A significant event for New Zealand. I want to acknowledge the 15 people who lost their lives in those very sad events, including children. I think couldn't be more serious that we get the system right, and certainly we will not stand in the way of making sure that these changes are implemented as soon as they can be, and so it's timely to see this introduced. We had a slightly different approach, it's fair to say, at Select Committee when we saw the report into the government inquiry into the North Island weather events. We thought maybe we could amend the existing bill and that would be faster. The government took a different view. That's their call. That was not something we agreed with at the time, but I think, as you could have heard through the Minister's reflections, we tried to work very constructively with that decision. And as chair of the committee where this bill will go, definitely will be taking the scrutiny of this bill very seriously and making sure that we put forward the best possible bill to the House in order for this to be enacted, hopefully as soon as possible. I don't think we will ever have a perfect piece of legislation, but we certainly must implement the lessons that we learnt from that government inquiry. That government inquiry included at least six separate reviews and also several other studies into what was happening in our emergency management system. So it's really imperative now that we do implement this. This has been well thought through. We're talking about regulatory impact statements. This is the regulatory impact statement on this bill. Extremely long, extremely thorough, extremely well thought through. This has had a previous Select Committee process on the last bill. It's had a initial consultation process from when the roadmap was set out by this government. It's had significant amounts of submissions from the public already, and then I understand it will go through a full Select Committee process as well. So this is something that the the full democratic parliamentary process and all of the tools we have in relation to looking at the quality of our legislation have been utilised, and I want to commend the government for that, and it really should mean that there hopefully won't be any barriers to this bill being passed and being legislated for. I wanted to mention an important area which I think is reflected still in this bill, but is a bit of a difference from the previous bill brought in under the Labour government, and that's the role of iwi Māori in emergency management. We have seen and again, and one of the key findings from the government inquiry into the North Island weather events was that every time there is an emergency situation in New Zealand, whether they're asked to or not, whether they're at the table or not, iwi Māori marae step up in emergency situations. They take care of the people, they house people, they feed people. They have been taking on this role for generations, and whatever the legislation says, that's not going to change the manaakitanga and emergencies that iwi Māori have. And my colleague Kushla Tangiere Manuel took me out to Tairāwhiti, and I met some of those very people who took on that role during Cyclone Gabriel. So it's really important that that is acknowledged. The current legislation does not acknowledge that at all. This legislation does have a seat for iwi Māori at the Committee on Emergency Management Group, I think, the KEG group. That is something that we very much support, and I should note that it's not just one seat, it's one or more seats, so it depends on the different area as to whether more people should be involved. And there are also another couple of areas where iwi Māori can also participate in through being consulted as well. We had suggested a National Māori Emergency Management Advisory Group that hasn't been taken forward in this piece of legislation. From our perspective, that's regretful, but at the same time we see that there has been a concerted effort to improve the status quo, which is nothing at all at the moment, by the government and the minister. I want to acknowledge that, and also the significant treaty analysis that's been involved in the regulatory impact statement, and the intention of recognising what was in the government's report into the North Island weather events, and making sure that there is recognition for that key role that iwi Māori play in our emergencies in New Zealand, and the fact that they have a right to have a seat at the table when decisions are made. So this bill is an improvement, and we do support that, so thank you to the Minister for taking that forward. There are other things in this bill which are significant changes. There are changes to ministerial powers, there are changes in relation to information sharing, and I should acknowledge as well, one of the benefits, although we didn't support the bill being discharged at the time, has been that the issues that we've seen in very recent events have been incorporated into this bill. And so I think that is a benefit. So one of those things is information sharing. There have been issues in recent events where information hasn't been shared in the way that it could most usefully be shared in order to assist the emergency management response. So I think that is a very good change as well. There's also, as the Minister said, changes around decision making. We know that it's really clear that there should be a really clear decision making process in emergencies. That hasn't been as clear as it should be under the current legislation. I think this legislation will improve that as well. So that is something that we definitely support. The situation in emergency management in New Zealand is that we need to take seriously the fact that, as the Minister often says and is recorded in the government's report, which this bill is really based on, is the fact that we do have the second most at-risk country in the world, and we are one of the developed countries with the most at-risk profile in the world. That means that we should be, in theory, the best at the world at emergency management, and I'm sure that is a desire shared across the House, that we need to do whatever it takes to do everything we absolutely can to ensure that emergencies, when they do occur, are run with the best available information, with the best systems. We know we have the best people, so it's just about utilising that collective information to do the things that we know will assist in the response. So I thank the House and this government, previous governments, for the work on this bill, and I commend it to the House.
Any comments?
Okay. Yeah, so to Blake's point before, very limited data about disability accessibility when it comes to these emergency centres. I mean, he's brought this point up. Latest data collection was around 60-70% weren't accessible. The lowest estimate was 55%, and they were mostly small towns and rural areas, as mine sensitives were mostly ineffective. So yeah, it's looking like it's the same issue. Is you've probably got little pockets within towns or within cities that haven't really been updated or anything to consider the needs of disabled people, and you've probably got those little tiny communities like out in the wop-wops that probably just like, well, your local pub will serve.
Well, yeah, and they probably this is Murupara. They hate, this is an example of Murupara is it's a realistic sized centre, but it pretty much, as a community, they hate their council because the council is so far away from the governance is so far away. So they, so that is so that would be, so that there are areas where if you're so far away from your governance, you kind of feel that you're already on your own.
Yep.
Sort of thing, and you kind of already prepare for those sorts of things in place. But yeah, I mean, as the saying goes, your local pub probably will end up becoming the de facto emergency headquarters, especially in some of those areas where they actually probably don't have a local school.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's I don't think Ekatea has a local school, and that would be an example of a community that actually, I think the nearest school is either Pongaroa or Weeba or Pongahau. It's not actually Ekatea. And I mean, I mean, put it this way: it's Taura's Castle Point. Is it Castle Point? Yeah, it's Castle Point. Yeah. It's Taura's Castle Point. But that sort of thing there. So those areas, they won't have a school as the next default place. They might have a community hall, but unintentionally, it might become the local pub or the local volunteer fire station. And I wouldn't say the local volunteer fire station is necessarily accessible, considering some of them are literally garages just enough to fit the fire truck in.
Yeah, I mean, to circle back, if we can circle back to what Camilla Ballot said about time frames, I'm going to be a bit more forgiving on Mark Mitchell on this one. It does take time. This is the thing, right? You're passing stuff under urgency. You've got a whole bunch of crap that your co-members of your party have decided to try and put forward, and you've got this bill that you really want to get done and you really want to get passed, but first you've got to get through all the other crap. But also, the reason why a lot of these bills also take a little bit longer to get to the floor is because you've got to do all that consultation. Exactly. And I do respect. I would much prefer to have a bill that takes longer to get to the floor, that's been properly consulted on. I know that Mark has built upon what the last Labour Party did, and has engaged in more consultation, and he's done his homework on this. So I'm going to be forgiving there when it comes to Mark.
Yeah. No, he has definitely done what is meant to actually happen in a bill. And the thing is, proper consultation means, working across the House, means you're more likely to have the bill pass, which means it won't be undone by a future government.
Correct. It's going to stick.
A government that has to potentially fix up the mess.
Yeah, and it's like what Camilla said, like Blake brought it up before in the comments. Like Camilla said, there's no perfect approach. You're not going to get everything sorted on the first go. Exactly. And that's true. But what Mark has presented here is something that can be built upon. And that's what we want to. That's what I want to see. I want to see bills with solid foundations with good ideas attached to them. They don't have to agree with my political bias. They just have to have a solid foundation that can be built upon.
Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. You just want something that, if it's not perfect, it can be tweaked. It doesn't have to have a full rewrite. And you don't want to have what was said with the Arms Act. That was an example of tack-ons to legislation to the point where it needed a full rewrite anyway.
That's right. So that's why people go, it's like, Laura, why are you siding with the ACT party on this one? It's because I looked over the legislation, I read through the bill, and it's a mess, and you basically need to clean it up. Yeah. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, that might fall on a party you might not like.
Yeah. And so it's like something is better than nothing, especially in this case when you're dealing with emergencies, right?
Yeah, you don't want to have 20, 30-year-old legislation sitting down there that is not that was sat there and done before dial-up internet existed.
Yeah, I'm just glad that Mark actually understands the concept of prevention.
Yeah.
And readiness.
Which a lot of people, this isn't just politicians, but this is just people in general. There's people out there who just, they see deferment as a solution, it hasn't gone yet. They don't see the preventative approach.
Now, it does bring up an interesting question, though, because now you've got to look at National Party's tax policy. You're going to go, okay, you've decided that you want a rates cap, but a lot of the money that's brought up through rates is used for emergency readiness, right?
Yeah.
Where's that money going to come from now? Are you going to increase taxes? because I'm in favour of increasing taxes, especially on the upper crust of our society.
Yeah.
If you want to live in a functioning society where people can go to the shops and buy your goods, you've got to pay your taxes.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's something else that I do believe possibly should be looked at is possibly, now this is the thing, so for rental properties it exists, for owner-occupiers it doesn't, but possibly should rates be tax deductible against your annual income?
Not a bad idea. That could be something.
Because at the moment, yes, we had the rates rebate, but the rate rebate's only was it $650, and you have to meet a certain criteria. Like I don't even know if your household would meet that because of the number of people over 18 living there collecting income.
Mm.
That sort of thing. It's something that should be looked at. Whereas if you're in a rental property, to the landlord, it is tax deductible.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in favour of any type of legislation or tax policy that eases the burden on working class people, especially working class people with families. I mean, with young children, or or with disabled people, or I'm in favour if that's an idea that would lower the pressure on that particular demographic, I'm more than happy to support it.
Yeah, because that's something that is like going out there because rates aren't based on income at all. They're based on property value.
Yeah.
They're based on property value plus council expenditure budgets, and it's only the variable bandings that get in there. It depends on what council chooses, whether you have high fixed rate or high variable rate bandings. I don't know your direction, but I know in the case of Wellington, we have a lot more the value variables in Wellington, but that is different from council to council.
Yeah, it is going to be really interesting how this bill's going to play out in actuality, because it's like with the disestablishments of the regional councils, right? You're going to have more burden put upon the local councils, and then you're going to have to iwi lifting a lot of the weight, and they're going to have basically all the resources that the regional council had are going to be reallocated to the local councils. Are they going to have the skill set to be able to manage those resources and set up those programs?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. I mean, that's a good point. Actually, the interesting one will be is actually Gisborne District Council, because it's a unitary authority, does it have the skills? Because I do know that some functions Bay of Plenty Regional Council does in their joint catchment areas.
Yeah.
So a lot of work in some parts of Bay, a lot of work for Gisborne District Council, Bay of Plenty Regional Council does free of charge because of the fact that it's on boundaries and that sort of thing. I mean, I'm not sure if emergency management is in that boat, but I definitely know it's pest control. It's the one thing that they Bay of Plenty Regional Council typically does Gisborne's pest control.
Yep.
Because
But yeah, you can see how when you're taking those resources from the regional council and you're putting them on district councils, right? They've now got more work they've got to do. Are they going to be able to keep up with it? Do we need to make district councils bigger? Do we need
Exactly, or do we need joint approaches like was it Water Done Well?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get on to Francisco Hernandez.
Thank you.
Francisco Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak in support of this bill, and I wanted to thank the Minister for his leadership and engagement on this. We know that in this portfolio you've been willing to make some hard but not so popular calls, so we do think that is a mark of leadership. And we also wanted to echo the condolences you've expressed to the families of Rochelle and the thanks that you've expressed to the emergency management workers all around the country. The Greens are always uncomfortable supporting any legislation under urgency, but I've been assured by the Minister that it will go through the full select committee process, so that's assured us. And I also appreciate my colleagues across the House and the cross-party nature of the way that we engage in emergency management. I always appreciate everyone's passion and engagement at the Government's Governance and Administration Committee, ably chaired by Camilla Bellich, when the topic of emergency management comes through. Everyone's passion for emergency management and a genuine desire to serve the country really comes through in those discussions. I mean, I think sometimes, Mr. Speaker, when we scream at each other across the chamber like animals, we lose sight of the fact that everyone here is like intelligent adults that are doing their best to serve the country, and that does come through.
I will debate him on that point.
And look, it does show what we can do when we work in a cross-party way. We can make good law and we can go through full select committee process. And while legislation of this is really welcome, we do need to actually address some of the drivers of the emergency management events that are increasingly occurring. Since 2023, New Zealand has been, either nationally or locally, in some state of emergency for 224 days. Every single one of these days has been due to a fire, coastal hazard, or severe weather or flooding. Most of these events, Mr. Speaker, are exacerbated by the impacts of climate change. Every single greenhouse gas we emit contributes to heating up our atmosphere, and every single fraction of a degree exacerbates and amplifies the impacts. Now, in the same urgency block that we are passing this needed and necessary legislation with cross-party support, this government has also introduced a bill that would gut the Climate Change Response Act by weakening our emissions reduction targets, watering down the Independent Climate Change Commission, and gutting our emissions trading scheme. It's a little bit like increasing the funding to the fire service, something that's urgent and necessary, by the way. At the same time, you're handing out fire starters.
True.
So, look, we do support this bill. It is a good and necessary bill, and we support in particular the increased coordination between local and central government that this bill enables, the requirements for lifeline services to contribute to emergency management plans, the increased protection for animals in emergency management situations, the increased oversight for emergency management powers, and the increased role in increasing the role at the table for iwi and Māori. But there are things that we think that this bill could go further on, and these are the things that we will push during the select committee stage. And we do know, as my colleague Camilla Bellich has said, that the original emergency management bill that was introduced by the then Labour government had stronger provisions for working with iwi Māori. We also want to ensure that disabled people are included in the emergency management planning, and we will continue to push for greater integration with climate change adaptation frameworks, because the risk reduction aspect is really complemented by efforts to ensure that they're being aligned with climate adaptation efforts. And outside of the legislative process, we will continue to fight for what we always have fought for: fair funding for workers and the emergency management frontline, at the climate emergency management frontline, like firefighters, so that they can have fair pay and conditions and safe equipment. So I wanted to close by thanking the emergency management workers, not only at NEMA, not only at the people working across the different councils, but also the people at the the front line, at the emergency management response, whether they be police, whether they be ambulance workers, nurses, people who are really dealing with the actual frontline impacts of the emergency management events. And I really wanted to thank in particular to the firefighters who came to talk to us at Parliament forecourt last night. We do stand with you and all the other emergency management workers around this country, and I hope that you can see with the cross-party support that this bill is getting that we do support emergency management across the House in this country. Kia ora.
Mr. Speaker.
I think that is very fitting what was said, because now this was done on the 9th of December, but because of what's happened in Auckland and Pakuranga with Peter House of the burning, increased funding for firefighters, fire services is definitely a very touching issue, especially at the moment. And I can also confirm I've been to Peter House once because Muslim's Dad Muhammad took me there when I had the truck in Auckland. So it was really weird watching on the news and actually saying, I've actually been there before, because, been somewhere in Auckland. But I think that's very fitting in how something that happened so far before has come so relevant this weekend.
Yeah. I hate to be that person, I told you so, with climate change, but I told you so. Climate change is real, guys. It's real. But yes, I have noticed reading through the bill that Mark has done everything he can to minimise the very mention of climate change. But besides that point, look, if we're going to do fossil fuels in New Zealand, can we tax the fuck out of the companies? Because it's like they're literally causing the shit.
No, basically it's to have high royalties on it.
Yeah.
High royalty charges.
We'll go, well, then I won't be able to drive my Ford Raptor. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, but there's a price to burning dinosaurs.
Exactly. If you want to sit there and do it, why don't you convert it to LPG? That's, that does clean a bit burner than petrol.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that as someone that likes things like Ford Raptors, by the way. But look, it's like, I like big trucks. Okay, I love trucks. I love the trucks. But
it's like me and my manuals.
Yeah. I love driving manuals and trucks and diggers and tractors. I love that stuff. But look, we cannot lie. Okay, it's one of the biggest contributors to what's happening in the environment around us. It's the reason why we're getting more extreme weather patterns. It's the reason why farmers are struggling to do recovery after their apple orchard has been flooded out. Like, come on, there's got to be at some point we've got to. Actually, we should have done it yesterday. We've got to tax the fuck out of the fossil fuel companies.
Yeah. And have a transition over to renewable energies. Yeah. Okay, let's get to Laura McCure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this piece of legislation. I also want to acknowledge the Minister and his work and the opposition members for their work in this this reform that we greatly need. I also want to acknowledge Rochelle and her family, being from Christchurch. I did not know her personally, but I do have quite a few friends and family that had worked with her. Some of you may know or may not know that before I became an MP, I actually worked in this space for the last 15 to 20 years. I'd been doing emergency response planning, mostly in the evacuation side of things, but I'd been working quite a lot out there with our communities and with our councils, with our iwi, around improving the systems that we have. And time after, we would often hear that when disaster strikes, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape around what could and could not be done. What I'm really happy to see is that this is enabling more of a community-led approach. And I think that's a really important thing, because we all know that communities know the person to get on the phone and call up when they need a generator. We know that central government rolling in to do that job is not going to have the same effect. So I think that this bill's a really great start, and it's heading in the right direction to empower those communities. We also know that failure to prepare for a disaster means that we prepare to fail ourselves. And that is something that I've always said to people. And it's highly important that we actually go into the preparation a lot more. And I hope to see that these established groups really do get into the preparation and actually go through some of the scenarios. I know that the former member, the member across the other side of the House, talked about we could have any system and it would never be perfect. And that is actually true, because you can never prepare for some things. But what you can do is you can make sure that people know their roles and they know who to call and they know where to go. And that has to be led from the community. I do have concerns with the bill that the community part of it doesn't include our NGOs, our other community organisations and our other groups that are actually on the ground as well. And I think that we need to consider that. And I really look to those, particularly the councils that are going to be setting up these groups, to think about the other people that are often involved in a disaster, and also that recovery phase as well, because we want to decentralise this process as much as possible to empower those communities to do the right things. We also have a bit of a concern about the Mataranga Māori and the tikanga into the committees. I think while we definitely need local voices and local iwi, we have to have that. It's really important. But we don't want, somebody coming in from central government just saying, oh, I know the tikanga, this is how it's going to be. So I really want to make sure that when the select committee goes through this, that they actually consider that these are locals, these are people from the marae that are involved, because that's how we're going to drive the best outcomes. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I commend this bill to the House, and I'd like to see where it goes in the future.
Okay, this one I can jump on because it's actually interesting. Now, Laura McCure, I don't know. Look, she's trying to say, hey, let's involve these NGOs and let's involve all the stuff so we can get as much central government money and resources out of it as possible. That's effectively what she's just said there, right? Yeah. So we can cut back on the amount of support we give to local councils. Okay, there's a problem with that though. And yes, I am familiar with the latest stuff the Atlas Network has put out when it comes to local body politics and policy. The idea of, we can have our emergency supplies and stuff like that with a company's advertising on it to help pay with the costs. Or I know the direction that the ACT party wants to go down, and it's not necessarily a good approach, because we can look at places like in America, right, where you had like Starlink and stuff like that, and you had Elon Musk, and you had people influencers out there with helicopters, and people
helicopters only brought to you by Amazon.
Yeah, but did you see what happened in America with FEMA? People refusing help from FEMA because it's like, oh, big government's coming in, but ignore that shit. It's not a good way to do emergency response. And she's up here saying we don't want central government saying, oh, that's not tikanga. But is she opposed to having iwi Māori in the same meeting who are locals to the community, who've been there for 1,000 years, coming in and saying that's not tikanga, that site is a wahi tapu, we can't put a helicopter pad there because it's on top of our ancestors, or so on and so forth. I'm just trying to understand her logic here. Does she want to privatize emergency response? Does she want to have charities step up and take on the funding? Because we know that people don't contribute enough to charities to do that. I mean, we've already gone over how much it costs New Zealand's GDP. Like, natural disasters costs our economy 0.7% of our GDP per year. Are you suggesting that NGOs and charities can pick up that tab? Because I can tell you now they won't, and I can tell you now that councils will have to raise rates.
Yeah. And they probably would have to sit down and apply to have an exemption of rates caps.
Yeah, so here you go. You got a libertarian checking another libertarian's argumentation. I'm in favor of decentralization, but you cannot do it at the cost of removing resources. It's really important.
Decentralize the management, but don't decentralize the funding.
Correct. So it's very important. Like, I'm a big fan of participatory democracy, planning, participatory economics, getting the community involved in planning the future of their area and their district and all. I love that. I'm a big fat geek for that shit. But I don't like the idea of going, right, we're at a point now, we can't raise the rates, therefore we've got to do privatization of, that's just, you can't do that with emergency response, because you don't, what you end up with is a breakdown of society. You get people turning against each other, you lose that community spirit and that harmony, and people sit there going, what the fuck am I paying taxes for?
Exactly. Okay, let's get on to Uncle Andy Foster, who is the former mayor of Wellington, so actually would know, and actually has declared a state of emergency when he was mayor.
Andy Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, I rise on behalf of New Zealand First and also as a member of the Governance Administration Select Committee. I'm looking forward to considering this bill later on. I just want to start by saying thank you to Minister Mark Mitchell, both for the work that's gone into this, but also for the way in which you've engaged with the Select Committee every time you've come along. It's been a very open conversation, and I think that's great, so really appreciate that. Mr. Speaker, it was Sir Humphrey Appleby who said that civil defence is a joke. Everyone knows that civil defence is a joke. I don't think he'd have given that advice if he'd been living in New Zealand. And I look at what the information which many of you will have seen that NEMA has given us. We have been in New Zealand since 2016. There have been 87 local and 2 national states of emergencies declared. Total 559 days, at least at the time that this was published. That's equivalent to 1 day every week for that 10 years that somewhere in the country, or the whole country, was under a state of emergency. So it is a big deal in New Zealand. And looking forward, NEMA talk about the likelihood of serious and significant events. And you look at this and say, there are some certainties in life. There's death, there's taxes. And I'll tell you what, in New Zealand, there is emergency, because there will be some. I mean, even if you look at one particular one, which is the AF8 situation, next 50 years, 75% chance of that happening. That's not quite certain, but it's getting right up there. So being prepared, being able to respond to emergency is absolutely essential. This emergency management bill has been long awaited. It's been great to see a lot of engagement. If we did lots of engagement before all pieces of legislation, that'd be a really good thing, because there'd be much better legislation for it. And I'm sure that this will improve the legislation that we've got in front of us at the moment, the level of public input. It's important, Mr. Speaker, I think that this bill delivers all that we need in terms of emergency management. I don't know how hard it is to get a legislative slot, but I don't imagine it's easy. So this is the shot that we have to get emergency management right in this country. Mr. Speaker, the bill talks about 3 things: taking an end-to-end approach, come back to that in just a second, considering all hazards, and all parts of society playing a role. And we've had a lot already discussion about the importance of community, the importance of iwi being involved in emergency management and emergency response. We also talk, Mr. Speaker, about the 4 R's: reduction, readiness. We can't avoid risk, but we can consistently work to reduce that risk. There's also response and recovery. And the danger, I think, Mr. Speaker, in these things is we focus too much on the response and recovery and not necessarily enough on making sure that we don't have the problem in the first place. So 3 quick lessons that we've had with the engagement, particularly with you, Minister, and our engagement with NEMA. The first one of them is that we need to stop reinventing the wheel with every single different event. Every event that we have, it's who do we need to get involved in this event to try and respond to it. We've got to do better than that and be switched on right from the start. That's the kind of bureaucracy, I think, that we've just heard about from the previous speaker. Secondly, we've got to stop building dumb things in dumb places. And I just want to think about the Auckland situation. We've had to change the planning laws so that we didn't put 3,000 plus homes in a place which was subject to flooding. So we stopped building dumb things in dumb places, and you get a lot of support from that, from the insurance industry and our Hazards Commission. But also the question is, what is the role of NEMA in saying stop building dumb things in dumb places? Because I think that they should have a role in doing it. And the third one is adaptation. We've already heard a little bit about adaptation, but I just want to call out one particular thing. We were at a meeting in Hamilton not that long ago, middle of the year I think it was, and Shane Jones was talking to that meeting, talking about investment in the regions, and somebody stood up unprompted and said, look, thank you very much for the work that was done under the Provincial Growth Fund in protecting Taradale. And what he said is that the floodwaters under Cyclone Gabriel got within a few feet of the top of that flood bank. If they got over that flood bank, or that flood bank had not been there, just think of the loss of property, and worse, the loss of life that would have happened. So preparedness, really, really important. Mr. Speaker, just to finish off, there are a lot of aspects to emergency management, and at a recent visit to the West Coast, they're very anxious about emergency management. I mentioned the AF8 situation, the availability of Bailey bridges, fuel and equipment, how we manage events and tunnels. Visited the mines rescue, and they raised issues not only of those tunnels that they have there, but also of road and rail tunnels. So there's a lot that goes into preparing for emergencies and then to responding to them. Mr. Speaker, looking forward to Governance Administration hearing submissions and considering the bill, and I commend the bill to the House.
So I have a question for Uncle Andy. Given that we have more extreme weather now, and that we need to do all this preparedness work and whatnot, would he agree with me that expanding mining on the Denniston Plateau is building a dumb thing in a dumb place? Like, seriously, it's like it's uphill from the ocean, and it's like polluting the rivers, and it's like emitting emissions, and it's killing the native wildlife. Yeah, dumb things in dumb places.
You want to build a 4-story or 8-story apartment block in Houghton Bay, overlooking the waves that are about to sit there and tumble onto your house.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not dumb because you get a nice view.
That's something he's made the big point about when he was on council. Is like, well, why should the rest of Wellington pay for these seawalls for these residents whose houses probably aren't in the best place?
So people don't drown?
Yeah. Well, that's one aspect of it. But I mean, also the other one is it's like, well, who should shoulder the cost? That was more his point because he has, anyone who's been in local government, they want everything done, but they don't want to pay for it. And he was very commonly kept pointing that out. He has a strong history for it, but for the right reasons.
Well, were they new build? Sorry, I don't know anything about what you just said about Wellington. Was it a new bit with these new buildings that were proposed?
Some of them were looking at people who were wanting to build new houses along that corridor.
Oh yeah, that's a dumb place to put dumb things. Yeah.
Some of them are existing houses, but some people did want to build new ones along there as well. Like one property developer wanted to actually look at apartment buildings, and he said it's a stupid idea. Why don't you sit there and look at buying land, a couple of 100 meters in?
Yeah, don't do what Florida does. Don't build houses right on the fucking beachfront.
Yeah. Yes, and there are currently a state that I think there are only 3 insurers left. And insurance premiums are ridiculous. In Florida, your health insurance might be cheaper than your home insurance.
Yeah, I believe that.
I believe that. In the United States. Imagine having to pay, $500 a month for your health insurance and another $500 a month for your home insurance. And they've also got compulsory car insurance as well, which also does lead to higher premiums.
Yep.
Yeah. And they don't have ACC. Yeah. Okay, let's get to Hannah Rafferty Maipi Clark.
Tēnā rā koe te pika o te rā, tēnā rā tātou e te whare. E tū ana te Pāti Māori ki te tautoko I tēnei pire, waihoki ki te mihi atu ki te minita, kia koe Mark me o mahi, me o kaimahi roto I tēnei o ngā pire, waihoki ki ngā kaimahi putanoa I te motu, kua rau o rātou ringa raupa ki tēnei momo mahi I roto I ngā take āhuatanga o te motu me ngā huarere o te wā. So Te Pāti Māori supports this bill, and I just want to extend our mihi to the Minister, Mark, and also the condolences to the whānau who have lost a great wahine, and also acknowledging all the kaimahi within the emergency response team throughout the country. Sorry. This bill implements parts of the government's response to the 2023 inquiry into North Island severe weather events, finding that the current emergency management system was not fit for purpose and lacks the capacity or capability to deal with the significant emergencies affecting many regions. Thank you very much. Many regions at once. The inquiry also underscored the fact that Aotearoa has not achieved the whole of society approach to emergency management that Parliament envisioned when the CDEM Act was passed in 2002. I was born that year, a point solely understood by marae throughout the country. Iwi and Māori communities may be offered seats on committees and involvement in emergency responses that they would have let out anyway, because iwi and Māori don't sit around waiting for somebody else during and after a disaster. Rather, iwi and Māori choose to lead together when no one else will and can. Iwi, hapu and marae often place themselves forward as bastions of protection and manakitanga to all communities affected. Tikanga steps forward where government legislation is inadequate. Iwi and hapu step forward where government agencies and authorities do not know where to look, who to speak to or how to help. These acts of manakitanga and rangatiratanga rang true during the Christchurch earthquakes and later the Kaikoura earthquake. More recently, the profound role of iwi Māori was demonstrated further during the Edgecombe floods and the Whakaari White Island disaster and Cyclone Gabriel. E te pika, it was the late Dr. Ranginui Walker who said this: the marae is the focal point of Māori culture and communal activities. But the contemporary history lesson here is that the marae are often the focal point of emergency management and communal uplift. The marae is not only, as Dr. Ranginui puts, is a place to stand for Māori people, it is often a place of refuge and aroha for all people who enter its gates. And deeply held notions of mana and good faith towards all people who make up the diverse communities. Maraes are not businesses, and most don't have regular income and resources to support their functioning. So at times I must acknowledge the PGF fund that many marae have had across the country. And yet they are relied upon heavily by both governments and the public to provide support and relief despite the taxpayer-funded role and obligations of authorities. I might also just, while I've got the last minute, want to shed light on some of the young rangatahi Māori who have used their studies to contribute to their to taiao climate resilience and also their maraes. I want to acknowledge one person, Haukapuanui Verko, who has used his PhD to future planning all maraes across the country and how we can better use our infrastructure of maraes because the majority of our maraes are actually close to wetlands and are predominantly exposed to flooding. And that would be a great person to have on the future Māori Advisory Committee. Nō reira, tēnā rā tātou i te pika.
I think
I
that's
like the bipartisan support of getting a glass of water, because if you might notice in there, Deborah Russell was the one who brought the glass of water, but you notice Andy Foster was about to go and get one poured himself as well for her.
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say that speech was actually a good response to Laura McClure, what she was talking about. You know, it's like, oh, why can't we get the NGOs and all that stuff in? And you know, it's like, oh, we can't have too much Maoriness or whatever. You know, it's like, yeah, it's like when you look at how much iwi, local iwi, contribute towards emergency responses, it's like you kind of want to have the input, eh?
yeah, especially considering they have the local knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next bill, the Public Works Amendment Bill. So,
now we're okay. Yeah, this bill is the definition of policy wonkery. So hold on to your butts because it's very boring and also very detrimental if it passes.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay.
Madam Speaker.
Honourable Simon Watts.
I move that the Public Works Amendment Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Transport and Infrastructure Committee to consider the bill. At the appropriate time, I intend to move that the bill be reported to the House by 14 May 2026. Madam Speaker, New Zealand has an infrastructure deficit. The Public Works Critical Infrastructure Act was passed in August to help address this by speeding up land acquisition for critical infrastructure projects. I now present further reforms to the Public Works Act 1981 that will improve the public works system as a whole. The Public Works Act enables central and local government to acquire and manage private land to deliver projects for public benefit. It is a crucial mechanism that supports public infrastructure projects and also enables the construction of roads, schools and hospitals. However, the Act is outdated and requires modernisation to fulfil the needs of current and future New Zealanders and to support New Zealand's economic growth. The bill makes targeted amendments to improve the Act's efficiency, effectiveness and clarity in relation to land acquisition. The bill does not change the Act's processes for disposing of land no longer required for a public work. The changes made by the bill were informed by an expert advisory panel, and on behalf of Minister Pink, I wish to thank the members of the panel for their input. The bill better enables a joint approach to project delivery. Central and local government will now be able to coordinate land acquisition for connected public works. They will also be able to acquire land should they need to relocate third-party infrastructure if that third party could otherwise acquire the land for a public work. The bill will enable Transpower to initiate acquisition negotiations and undertake some public works processes without having to rely, Madam Speaker, on ministerial approval. However, compulsory acquisition powers will remain with the Minister for Land Information. These changes will support Transpower to upgrade and build infrastructure necessary to meet the government's energy goals of doubling supply of renewable energy. The bill maintains the Crown's practice of avoiding acquiring Maori land where it can and introduce additional safeguards in an acquisition process should it arise. Compulsory acquisition of protected Maori land will be jointly decided on by the Minister of Land Information and either the Minister for Maori Crown Relations or the Minister for Maori Development, depending on the type of protected Maori land. The minimum negotiation period for acquiring Maori freehold land with more than 4 beneficial owners or vested shareholders is extended from 3 to 6 months. Madam Speaker, this bill retains requirements for negotiations in good faith after providing owners of land with an estimate of compensation based on a valuation carried out by a registered valuer. Landowners can only object to land being taken at the Environment Court. The bill makes targeted amendments to improve the efficiency of objection processes. Where a designation is in place, the Environmental Court will not be able to consider whether adequate consideration has been given to alternative sites, routes or other methods. This will reduce duplication with the Resource Management Act processes, and I also note that changes to the Resource Management Framework that are being progressed alongside this bill, and officials will keep an eye on those reforms to identify any impacts on this Act, including for objections or designation requirements. The bill clarifies that compensation matters are not within the scope of the Environment Court's objection proceedings, as they are instead handled at the Land Valuation Tribunal, and objection proceedings will also be streamlined by requiring objectors to state the grounds for objection in line with matters provided by the Act. These changes will not apply to the recently enacted amendments for critical infrastructure projects where landowners can make submissions for the Minister of Land Information or local authority, in this case, rather than objecting at the Environment Court. Madam Speaker, it also will make changes in regards to compensation provisions, which will recognise the need for fair, equitable and consistent compensation settings for an effective public works system. Madam Speaker, the bill also introduces provisions and acquisition processes to enable faster acquisition of land to support emergency recovery. This will support timely and efficient restoration of damaged public works or their functions following an emergency. Currently, bespoke legislation is required to speed up acquisition processes following significant emergency works and events which delays recovery. Lastly, Madam Speaker, the new regulation making powers of the Act can require the Act's users to provide information to Land Information New Zealand, who must also report annually to the Minister on the operation of the Act, and this will support the public works system long-term effectiveness by helping identify and respond to barriers to efficiency. The bill modernises the Act's delegation clause by relying on the Public Services Act's general power of delegation, and these provisions, of course, Madam Speaker, would enable PWA powers to be delegated to agencies that frequently use the PWA. However, compulsory acquisition decisions remain with the Minister of Land Information. And with all that, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the hard and diligent work by the Minister Pink for this very excellent bill, I commend this bill to the House.
Gee, it seems to be musical chairs on who's in the office and all that. Like, I mean, considering the previous there's a previous urgency period. Chris Pink was basically the main minister reading out legislation on behalf of other ministers, and now you've got Simon Watts stepping into the fold. But I didn't know that land acquisition or Public Works Act was the responsibility of the Minister of Land Information. I thought that would have been like the Minister for Infrastructure.
Well, I mean, there you go. You learn something new every day.
I know. Yeah, and like considering when I saw Simon, well, that felt right because he's Minister of Local Government.
Yeah, well, so you might be thinking, well, Laura, doesn't the amendments of this bill incorporate further protections for like Māori? It's like, yeah, it does, but sort of. But there is an issue here, and it has to do with the way how the new process is going to work, right? So I compared what's been proposed in the bill to what the current process is. And I'm just going to go over my notes now. So compulsory acquisition notice and objections process are the two main areas that I have issue with, and you're going to see that in the other speeches. So currently, if the government wants to take your land, take your stuff, so they have to present a notice of intention to take. So the minister signs under Section 23 after failed negotiations. So objections can be made to the Environmental Court. Now, under this bill, the minister must form the opinion that taking the land is fair, sound, and reasonably necessary. Okay. Yep. So they have to argue that it is. Do they have to argue that form the opinion? I mean, I could just go, oh, yeah, the vibes are right in the air. I'm going to just take shit. So I need to look further into that. I mean, I literally just rushed over this policy as I was searching for my cat, who still hasn't been found. But either way, so the next point here is restricted objection grounds. So objectors must state specific grounds. The courts cannot reconsider alternatives if an RMA designation exists. I've got a problem with that. And then you've got the Māori minister consent, which I think is Tamapōtaka, isn't it?
Sorry, which one?
Is Tamapōtaka the Māori minister?
Yes, Minister of Māori Development, yes.
Yeah, so he has to give the thumbs up if you want to take protected Māori land. So what this basically does is it shifts the legal. Hold on a minute. Just shift. Oh fuck! My computer's playing up.
Yeah, it gets quite interesting because there was there was property sold in a designated land for a 4-lane motorway through Wellington, and a new new 3 block of houses were built on that.
Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. So what this basically does, effectively, is it shifts the legal threshold for taking land. It significantly narrows the scope for landowners to challenge the need location of a project, and it adds specific protection for a category of Māori land. So for a category of Māori land, not all the Māori land. So just point out. And then we'll go over the next issue that I have with this bill, is that currently landowners can object to the Environmental Court about the proposal to take land. So the Environmental Court is the pathway for where you can put through your objections, and compensation disputes go to the Land Valuation Tribunal. But under this bill, the objections will be limited. So court inquiry into alternatives is excluded if an RMA designation exists. So again, you're going to see most of the arguments brought up by the opposition are going to be based around this. Grounds must be stated, so objections must relate only to matters the court can consider. Okay, so that's a bit concerning, because sometimes you might have an objection that's in a bit of a grey zone that's actually quite important, especially when it comes to, that's quite often the case when it comes to Māori land, and then compensation excluded, so explicitly not part of the objection proceedings. So basically what this means is that it does reduce duplication with the RMA, but it curtails a major avenue for challenging the fundamental need for the taking. So it strengthens the separation between land taking and compensation disputes. So yeah, basically, because they're doing a let's throw the RMA in the bin moment.
Yeah.
It's basically going to narrow the ability for people to challenge the purpose and the reasoning for the acquisition. And it could potentially clog up other courts, like take the Māori courts.
Yeah, or the High Court.
Yeah.
Which is the one that sits above all the other courts.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'll just go through this. Yeah, so I mean, if objection rights are restricted, right, this is from the regulatory impact statement. If objection rights are restricted, there may be an increase of I'm going to say there will be an increase, because we love courts. There may be an increase in Māori landowners seeking recourse via other means, such as the Māori Land Court. So we're going to clog that up. Clog it up. It's already clogged up with marine titles. Let's clog it up with the Public Works Act and the desire to land acquisition. Let's clog it up with that.
I know you.
Yeah.
Who's on your what?
Sorry, no. It's a ad.
Okay, it's the advertisement for Māori land.
No, it's actually for a program called V-Fly that apparently is meant to grow your YouTube channel.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
No, during the show, I've already been sent an email about trying to bring us up to 4,000 watch hours, and I'm thinking like, we're closer to 7,000, mate. It's just our subscriber numbers aren't quite up there.
Yeah, we're too boring. No, hold on. I get it. Look, policy wonkery is a difficult thing to subscribe to because that's all I do. I look at bills, and then
exactly,
I have to explain technical stuff, and that gets really boring. People just want to know, hey, is the world on fire? Do I need to...
No, well, unfortunately, we're not going to tell you on fire. We're going to tell you the bill that helps it when it's on fire.
Yeah, so I think at the moment people are more interested in like learning about whether Trump's going to take over Venezuela or actually no, sorry, not Venezuela. He's already done that. Greenland.
Yeah, Greenland. Yeah. Okay, let's get on to Damien O'Connor.
The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Labor will be cautiously supporting this bill to Select Committee. Madam Speaker, we are aware that the Public Works Act has been around for a long time and has been a very important tool for government, for councils, for infrastructural projects. And things have moved on in some areas and some things have got stuck in others. And so it is timely to review this. But given the current climate of the coalition government, we have some major concerns. I think no one can dispute the objective of developing infrastructure around the country. And the government's made a lot of noise about that. In fact, the previous government, we had in government, had a fast-track process for genuine infrastructural improvement and housing. And so the concept is one that we support, but the safeguards are the ones where we kind of end up in dispute on. And so faster delivery of public works, that's a great idea. We have the Resource Management Act changes, which I guess will look pretty much like the effort that Labor put in. They say with additional property rights. Well, I'm not going to get into that at the moment, but property rights is at the heart of the Public Works Act, and the Act has always respected and upheld property rights over land, often, or usually land that is required for infrastructural development. And so, that has been one of the things that has been broad support across the House for this. So the legislation, as I say, will go from this House into Select Committee. There will be many, many issues. And I hear a little bit of chirping on my left here about Māori land, and we accept that there has often been some challenges around the Public Works Act and around dealing with Māori landowners. It's more complex than a single individual, although even individuals, as we've seen on some projects, have dug their heels in and actually been difficult to work through to a resolution, which has meant the delay in many, many worthwhile projects around the country. We are concerned about Māori rights and the ability of multiple owned Māori landowners who have the right to have a say over a piece of land and have often been allocated land under a settlement regime, and then the Crown comes knocking on the door asking for that land again. There are a number of safeguards. Firstly, one that isn't always in place, and that is that Māori owned land will be valued as though it was freehold land. I think that there'll be precedents taken from this that Māori will appreciate down the track, but it's not to dwell on at this point, other than to say there are some reference to and some safeguards in this legislation to acknowledge the difference for Māori landowners, and we will be clearly investigating that at the Select Committee stages. Madam Speaker, the Crown and local authorities do need to, as I said before, get on and acquire some land, whether it be often for roading, but the other specific reference in this piece of legislation is to Transpower. Transpower is, of course, the lifeline for electricity distribution through the country. We support the upgrades that will mean electrification. What we don't support is the privatisation. Yeah. And so one of the things that we will be thoroughly investigating to make sure that we don't add powers to the Minister or to government through the Public Works Act or this amendment that allow Transpower to get on and build whatever they like, and then charge back to electricity users a capital charge on that. And as we already know, we have in the electricity sector some super profits going out off the back of monopolistic behaviour. So scrutinising the provisions for Transpower will be one of the things that Labor in opposition will be doing. Madam Speaker, they say there has been targeted consultation to develop this up. We're hoping that there are no major glitches in this, as I say, other than oversight that we will be looking for through the Select Committee process. The Environment Court's have their wings clipped, and in my view, won't be able to look at alternatives. These are some of the areas of concern that Labor has. We'll be working with other opposition parties to make sure this piece of legislation does deliver progress, not just profits for a few.
Right.
He's bang on the money on that one.
Yeah, so Transpower, bringing up the fact that the government can, with this bill, could effectively advocate for acquiring land that they could essentially pass on to a private company, which could then, charge extra for their services to get profits that, a public asset wouldn't do. That's really concerning.
Yeah.
Because it's like basically what you're doing is you're rewarding corporations.
And I mean, this is something, so this isn't quite private company, but in the early parts of IREX, Kiwirail proposed, under the Public Works Act, to acquire land off Centreport, owned by Greater Wellington Regional Council, to build the new ferry terminal at King's Wharf.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that got scaled back, but it's big enough, the fact that a state-owned enterprise has the ability to use the Public Works Act to acquire land. It would be very concerning if it's a private company being able to do that. Are you suddenly going to have, Ian Castle, a property developer in Wellington, using the Public Works Act to acquire properties from owners who aren't willing to sell?
Well, here's what I'm concerned about is the lobbying. So basically you could have a private corporation go, we want this here, lobby the government, and then the government goes, okay, we have a good reason now to go in and try and acquire land. Yeah. And you can't go and object to the environmental court.
Yeah.
That's so I know I have said in the past that if they can do it to Māori, they can do it to everyone else.
They did it relentlessly to Māori over from 1840, 1850 right through up to about 1880.
Well, here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Here you go to the Tohu and Pākehā watching. They're now doing it to you.
Yeah.
They'll take your shit too.
Yeah, and then there was claims of it, I think, again after World War II as well.
Yep.
Yeah. But the interesting, one of the comments that are interesting about the wharf and the lobbying, you go, it's what happens when there is a protracted, it's what happens when one entity has ideas and doesn't talk to the other affected party.
Yeah, like when I was reading through the regulatory impact statement, right, it very much, the language that was used in that document was very much based around the idea is how can we make building things more efficiently and how can we more effectively acquire land. It didn't really ask the question, what are the ethical ramifications for current landowners? And I've got a real issue with that because it's like, okay, it's, and I'm going to quote the RIS here, that the bill supports the government's infrastructure delivery priorities are set out in the government's economic strategy, that's National and Friends, going for growth. It delivers the action, taking decisions on the public works amendment reform to make it easier for the Crown to deliver infrastructure projects that provide wide public benefit. So the idea of providing wide public benefit, that doesn't necessarily mean cheaper services. That just means, oh, this private company's rocking on up. They're going to provide jobs, but they're still going to make a shit ton of money and profits.
Yeah. It's like a supermarket coming. Well, we don't quite have it so much in New Zealand, but it's like a Walmart coming into town.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So what's Walmart going to do to make things more affordable for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank goodness we don't have that as a big local issue.
But I can. I mean, that's a good example. Walmart could come in, undercut all the local businesses, and then raise their prices. Now,
and then decide, it's not profitable, and leave the town with nothing.
Yeah,
a piece of land.
I know we do have legislation in place that kind of prevents the whole undercutting and then raising the prices, but like you just said, Walmart could just leave.
Yeah, because that's what they've done in many United States towns. They have come in, they have gutted the community, and then they pack up their bags and they just leave, and the town is left with no facilities, no nothing. and then basically having to, effectively go, and that was after the small mum and pop businesses have gone out of business. And also the same thing that typically happens in that scenario is the fact that Walmart would put themselves on the town boundary that puts them into lower property tax category. So they didn't even pay the same amount of property taxes into the system as a mom and pop business in the inside high street.
Yep. And then you look at the stuff around Transpower, right? Electricity, the sector makes a god-awful amount of profit off the costs that they're putting into generating their electricity. They make huge profits.
Yeah.
Right? Is doing this for Transpower, right? Saying, yep, we're going to acquire this land so you can set up shop here. Is that going to lower the price of electricity, or is it relatively going to stay the same and you can't afford electricity?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, put it this way: Transpower's goal is distribution of electricity. It's not generation.
No.
So the Transpower aspect of it would not lead to cheaper prices. It just might mean you have more redundancies in the systems, which means you're less likely to sit down there and have. You might have better transformer in place. You might be fed in from more locations rather than the grid going down one path. But it doesn't mean that there's more electricity generation in the system. It just means you have more ways for the power to get to your house.
Yeah,
more roads to get home.
Yeah, it makes me ask the question: how many deals did the National Party make with all these different corporations saying, yep, we're going to get this bill passed so you can set up shop here. So making all these promises and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we saw with the fast track bills. Like, it's like going over the Riz. It says New Zealand is experiencing a long-running infrastructure deficit arising from investment slump during the 1980s and 1990s. Well, who can we thank for that? We can thank Roger Douglas and the success of national government. The status quo does not provide sufficient settings to support the government's commitment to deliver public infrastructure. Is it publicly owned infrastructure? Question mark. Is Transpower going to be publicly owned infrastructure?
Transpower is publicly owned at the moment, but
Yep.
Wellington Electricity isn't. Wellington Electricity is a private lines company.
Okay.
That is effectively it's the local distributor for Wellington. Kapiti Coast is owned by Electra, which is owned by the community in a trust. But if you get to Horowhenua, no, Horowhenua's Electra. No, it's further up the line, the Manawatu and Pumps North area. It's a different lines company. If you go to Auckland, Vector is the lines company, and they are publicly owned. And I think they also own the gas network as well.
Okay, so what part is publicly owned? Is it the poles, or is it the wires, or is it both?
Both. And it depends on what the company is. That's the thing. And in the case of Wellington was fully privatised.
Yep.
When Wellington City Council sold what was called the MED, when after Mark Blumsky promised not to sell it, ousted Fran Wild as mayor, and then sold the remaining share of the MED.
Oh, you gotta love that.
Yeah, exactly. Auntie Susie just riles about it completely. So yes, Wellington Electricity is a private lines company. It's actually on my 2 occasions team for Greater Wellington Regional Council, I campaigned for the Regional Council to buy Wellington Electricity to put it back into public ownership.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, some areas are private, some areas are public. You've got to work out what your local provider is. Yeah. Let's get on to Huhana Linden.
Huhana Linden.
Madam Speaker, I stand on behalf of Te Ropu Kākāriki and of course oppose what is coming through the pipeline right now. We've had RMA reforms, now we've got fast track, and we've got public works takings. And, where is the natural justice? Where is the natural justice for a landowner? Whether you are Māori or general title, where is the natural justice? Because as we've heard already, there's support on this side of the House, and yet you can't even go to the Environment Court. You can't go to the Environment Court when you have concerns. Rather, you have to go to a minister or local body who have probably already made up their mind in terms of a predetermined outcome and give them a submission that hopefully they might listen to your concerns as a landowner. Now, Public Works has cast a dark shadow across Aotearoa for generations, and we cannot forget the way with which Public Works takings have established towns, cities, hospitals, schools, endowment lands, harbour board lands, you name it, Māori lost it. and we were never compensated. We were given a praikete whero, and we were cast aside and meant to exist on reserve lands that never even happened. Kia ora, Nelson 10th. Kia ora. So, when we come into the House and we say this is for the good of all New Zealand, this is critical infrastructure, and this is for emergency response, well, often Māori have already experienced this raupatu already through the Public Works Act, and now it's coming for all Joe Public of Aotearoa. And that's the disappointment that we have on this side over here, where we think about property rights do matter, absolutely. Māori mai, Pākehā mai, Tauiwi mai. And when I think about the 489 landowners from Waipu over to Whangarei and beyond, from Te Hurihanga a Kāwharu, aka the Brenduans, there is a huge footprint of landowner loss for the 4-lane highway that this government puts up as some, awesome solution for Tai Tokero. The 4-lane highway should not be the excuse to raupatu 489 landowners who are now sitting in limbo. These landowners, and may I introduce Auntie Linda, front page of the Northern Advocate on Saturday, raising the fact that their whānau have had intergenerational connection to their farm, to where her father's ashes are buried, to the fact that they have planted natives and they have orchards growing, as well as an awesome productive farm. They are now in limbo alongside all of these landowners. Even Whangarei district councillors are at risk of losing their land. So what do we tell Auntie Linda and all the landowners who are at risk for the public good, for this critical infrastructure and for a 4-lane highway that is going to run smack bang through? Because their entire farm is going. Their entire whenua, intergenerational connection, where their mokopuna have been raised and will inherit this farm, is now gone. And now what we have is that somehow they have to put a submission in to a minister because they can't go to the Environment Court. It's been a tāhae of the process. There is no fairness in what is coming through in this legislation. Allow the landowner to go to the Environment Court, someone who does not have a predetermined outcome for the good of all New Zealanders, whereas they, as Auntie Linda, has to go to a minister and beg to protect their whenua. Now, I don't know how many members of this whare have lost their lands, but I know I have, and my whenua tūpuna tuku iho, Whangarei Terenga Prawa, covered with public works takings. And this whānau here is front line, ground zero, public works takings 2020-25 and beyond. And these landowners are calling and they are meeting and they are sent, I've got heaps of emails now from landowners all concerned at the fact that they will be sacrificed for a 4-lane highway. Where is the informed consent? Where is the consent of these landowners to even have a chance to survive and protect what little bit of whenua that they might have? No, you're going to give them an incentive payment and say, if you're an early taker, here you go, here's your praikete whero, take it and move on. Well, you tell Auntie Linda's mokopuna, where is there tomorrow? Because they're going to have to go and move to town or find somewhere else. Yep. No. You can yell as much as you like and try and contradict what I'm sharing, but this is lived experience, This is lived experience when you have a town built on top of you and endowment lands which took all the whenua for the purposes of Whangarei Boys High School. You don't even have a clue at the depth by which we oppose this.
The member's time has expired. Simon Court.
Thank you, Auntie Huhana, for that. She had some real auntie moments there with the finger. I quite like that. That Auntie Huhana moment. But yeah, she's pointing out the fact that where was I going with this? That I flopped like a pancake there. But there we go. Okay, objections process. See, that's what I was looking for. Right. Okay. So she's basically going back to the RMA stuff and the objections being limited, so court inquiry into alternatives is excluded if an RMA designation exists, right? Yeah. That's basically what she's going. So it's like, okay, well, if there's an RMA designation that build roads here or whatever, you're screwed. So yeah, I can't really add much onto that, man. That was pretty good.
Yeah. I found your local lines provider is called Scan Power.
Yep, Scan Power.
Yeah, that's your local lines company. According to the company's office, the majority of it is owned by a guy called Miles McCaffrey. However, I don't know if that is ownership as in charge of a trust ownership or not. That's the only part I don't know, because I think it's very odd that he owns all the shares but for in the business on a personal capacity. So I feel it might be in the case of a trust. But I don't know.
I'm not going to do a deep dive into Scan Power.
No, but that's just something, just so you know who your lines company is Scan Power. Yeah.
Scan power, that's the one. I said stand power. Look, it's late, and I've got a cat I've got to go and hunt for. But yeah, there's nothing I can really add on to what Huhana said.
No, she's being smack on the money.
Yeah, basically the Auntie Linda situation. Yeah, I mean, for example, I had, on top of my ancestors down south, I had a sewage treatment plant built on top of them. So, and this is exactly where the grey zones come in, right? When I was talking about the courts.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the courts sit there and, tidy up these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to Mr. Period Products with Benefit Sanctions, Simon Court.
Speaker, for decades, the Public Works Act has worked on 1980s principles and processes while New Zealand is crying out for 21st century infrastructure. This bill finally updates the system so we can build the roads that member so loves, energy networks and public facilities. Kiwis rely on these things and they don't want to be drowning in paperwork and process in order to get them. ACT supports these reforms, speeding up delivery, protecting property rights of all citizens, including Māori, and providing for fairer compensation. Infrastructure delays aren't just frustrating, are they, everyone? They are pushing up the cost of living because every unnecessary month of red tape adds to higher rates, higher taxes and higher prices for everything we use and consume. This bill moves us closer to efficient, transparent regime that treats landowners with respect. Unlike that member, and holds government agencies to account. Emergency land acquisition, of course, should not require a new Act of Parliament every time a disaster strikes. Aisha Verrill, you know all about disasters. ACT backs a predictable, rules-based system that safeguards the rights of property owners and delivers infrastructure, helps clean up after a disaster, even in extraordinary circumstances. Madam Speaker, the ACT Party commends this bill to the House.
Andy Foster.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. The Public
Is there anything to comment on there? Like, it was just a bunch of talking points.
A bunch of talking points and name calling.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I just need... Bring back Huhana. I'll watch her speech again. At least that was actually a speech. But yeah,
it's just showing, this is one of our governing parties, and that, ACT, I would rate, are the worst at speeches in Parliament.
I mean, they're almost as bad as me. And that's saying something. I'm pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare them, say, New Zealand First, okay, it gets a bit annoying that we keep hearing from Uncle Andy, but at least the fact is that at least they have reasonable speeches. ACT is just like that just sat down there and made my, was is it the blame game?
I mean, come on, look. Okay, right, let's go over this, okay? Look, who was the founding father of the ACT Party?
Roger Douglas and Richard Pepperell.
And what did Roger Douglas do back in the late 80s and early 90s?
Set up Rogernomics.
And
based on Thatcheronomics and Reaganomics.
Yeah, and what did Rogernomics do?
Pretty much decentralise so many things in the country and have what we have now.
Sold off all our state assets.
Yeah.
So, he's like, we're crying out for 21st century infrastructure. I'm like, yeah, you know what?
But
we're not crying out for it if you just got to turn around and sell it.
You got to remember, the current ACT Party has moved on from what the ACT Party started as well. They've become a bit more authoritarian.
They're a bit more shit at speaking. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I don't have any love left in my heart for the ACT Party. It took them all year to come up with one good bill.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking miracle. I mean, I don't know what on earth you're going to title this segment, but Laura crashes out over the ACT Party again.
I'll let ChatGPT work out some lines.
Yeah.
They give me a bunch of recommendations of what to listen to.
I'll be honest with you, ChatGPT comes up with some pretty boring lines. We can make them more fun. Just say Laura crashes out for the 100th time over the ACT Party.
Put that. Yeah. I like the idea of that. Yeah. Okay, let's get on to Uncle Andy.
Works Act is an important and necessary piece of legislation, and this bill is updating that legislation. When I first looked at it, it looked a little bit like deja vu because we had a bit of a look at the PWA earlier in this term. Madam Speaker, taking private property compulsorily is a big deal. It should be used sparingly where that property is required to deliver specified infrastructure for the benefit of our wider community. Madam Speaker, we've already heard from the member for the Green Party that connection to land is really, really important. It's much more for many people than just simply a mere financial asset. She certainly described the connection of her whānau to land in her instance. But for many people too, for New Zealanders, all New Zealanders, sometimes it is a home. Sometimes it's a place of memories, a place of time, where you've shared time with family and friends. Maybe it's where your children grew up. It's a place of emotion, of connection, of blood, sweat and tears in terms of investing in property, the work you've done, the trees you've planted, and all those projects, big and small. It's a place to stand, it's a place of connection, it's a place, turanga waiwai if you like. But sometimes there is a community need which says that compulsory acquisition is required. And as I said, taking land compulsory is a big deal. It should only be done when absolutely needed, and it should be done fairly and in good faith, transparently, empathetically, and with good engagement. And the bill, as I read it, it does that. It expands the ability, for example, to use incentive payments. It also recognises the significance of that compulsory acquisition by lifting the compensation payments when compulsory acquisition is absolutely required. And Mr Speaker, as we've just heard from Simon Court, that we also need to make sure that we have an efficient process so that we as a nation can deliver essential infrastructure in a timely, cost-effective way with maximum certainty. And this government, of course, is working very, very hard to reduce unnecessary bureaucratic impediments everywhere. And this is just part of that, which is essential to lifting our collective living standards. Madam Speaker, I note the inclusion of a restriction on the Environment Court considering alternative options only where there is a designation already in place. In other words, there's a lot of work already been done to decide that that piece of land, that particular area is required for that piece of infrastructure. It's good to see the provision for collaboration between agencies, so we don't have different agencies, maybe local government, central government agencies, who are having to do things twice. We want to do things once and do things effectively and efficiently while doing them empathetically and transparently with the landowners who are affected. It's also really pleasing to see the specific inclusion of Transpower. It seems weird that Transpower wasn't already considered there because, I mean, if you think about essential infrastructure, I don't think there's any more essential infrastructure than the national grid. I had a meeting the other day where with somebody in the energy industry who said that the energy industry represents just 3% of our GDP. But without it, the other 97% wouldn't operate either. So it's 3%, but it's also 100%. Without electricity, we would have no economy. And it's also pleasing to see provision for the use of the Public Works Act in an efficient way in terms of emergency recovery. Madam Speaker, I look forward to, as the Chair of the Transport and Infrastructure Select Committee, to receiving submissions on the bill, considering submissions on the bill, and to, in time, reporting that bill back to the House, and I commend it to the House.
Sorry, I must have missed that part, the empathy part in the bill. Because I'm looking through the bill, I'm looking through the RIS, I don't see the word empathy at all. But here's the thing, right? I don't know how it's empathetic to significantly narrow the scope for landowners, whether they be Pākehā or Māori or Tāi, to challenge the need or location of a project. You know, it's like, again, I'm going to say what I said in the past. Don't build things like sewage treatment plants on top of people's ancestors. I don't care what ethnicity you are.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right on that one. Yeah.
It's like, don't build a road on top of someone's
Oh God, that happened in was it Waikato?
Yeah.
Where the expressway was built, or there was something where it just went completely haywire. Yeah.
It's like, is that hard to ask for? It's like, you know, I mean, Uncle Eddie brings up Turanga Waiwai, right? Which is like, you know, just like place where your feet are at, where your ancestors are from, and all that stuff, right? It's a very important site. You know, he's like, oh yeah, Pākehā have that too. Sure. I'm not going to disagree there. My Danish ancestors came over here in the 1800s. I don't disagree. You know, it would be like I look at where the Mangatainoka cemetery is, right? Which is across the road from the Tui factory. Yeah, that's where my Danish ancestors are buried, right? I don't want a road going through there. Thanks. Yeah. They're not Māori ancestors, they're Pākehā ancestors. I don't want a road built on top of them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I don't want electric power lines going through the cemetery.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay, let's get on to Orini Kaipara. It'll be probably our last speech for the night.
From the land and soils. E te pika of all the bills before us this week, this is the most terrifying to all Māori. To Māori, public works is synonymous with raupatsu, confiscation, rua peka peka, rangiriri, rangiaowhia, o rākau, puke hina hina, maunga pōhatsu, parihaka, wairenga ahika, wairau, waikato, taka parawhau, and even ihu mātao. The list is endless, Madam Speaker, and this bill ensures it continues. It reaches into our whenua, our histories, our wāhi tapu and whakapapa, with the same heavy hand that began confiscating Māori land under the first Public Works Act in 1864. Yes, today's version is an improvement on the last, but its intent remains the same. It is another form of raupatsu. Every hapu in Aotearoa has felt the Public Works Act. There is no part of this country where Māori have not been pushed aside or built over in the name of public good. The clearest example is highways, just like Huhana Linden explained before. Highways are the sabre of raupatsu, straight lines cutting through whenua, displacing whānau and destroying wāhi tapu. Look at Waitanai. Wee Parata gifted much of the township to the people of Aotearoa, a profound act of generosity. Yet his own whānau later became casualties of public works takings. If that is the legacy of public works for a whānau who gave so much, then what hope is there for Māori with little ancestral lands left and for the mokopuna who dream of returning to their papatipu, their ancestral lands? Whenua is not a commodity to Māori. It is whakapapa, it is identity, and it is a sense of belonging. As kaitiaki, it is innately Māori to care for and to preserve our whenua and our taiao for the next generations. We do this not just by occupation, but through our way of life, our reo, our tikanga, and our whanaungatanga. It is where we lay our bones and what effectively makes us tangata whenua. You can sit and listen all day to the government celebrating faster, smoother, more convenient land acquisition processes, but it comes at the expense of tangata whenua. Even shifting notices fully online puts many whānau, especially our kaumātua, at risk of not being notified at all. That is how wāhi tapu get bulldozed. That is how urupa are disturbed. That is raupatu in 2025. Not with muskets, but with policy settings and website notifications. You cannot compensate whakapapa, you cannot replace papatipu, and you cannot claim to honour te tiriti while making Māori land something the Crown can price and take at will. It does not matter how much compensation the Crown offers, if Māori can never say no. Allowing one treaty partner to confiscate the land of another is a gross violation of te tiriti o Waitangi and of hapu rangatiratanga. This bill opens the door for takings to support fast-track projects rammed through without consultation, immune from court challenge and invisible to the public. Now, the Crown can seize any land, whether communities agree to it or not, for developments that nobody asked for. This is how communities are destroyed. This is how whakapapa is severed. This is how mana motuhake is extinguished and mokopuna are left with no whenua, no tikanga and no identity. This is how colonisation is entrenched in 2025. It goes without saying, Te Pāti Māori vehemently opposes this bill. We do not commend it to the House. We urge this Parliament to destroy it. And to every member who speaks proudly about Iwi settling historic grievances, Madam Speaker, walk your talk and shut this bill down, because the only thing it guarantees is that those same wrongs will happen again. Kia ora.
Yeah, I've got an idea. You've got to get the bill and throw it into the pit of Mount Doom. That's the only way to deal with the Public Works Act. You must destroy it.
Now, Tongariro will be suitable to be our local version of Mount Doom?
It is.
Actually, no, Ruapehu, because that's actually active, so when you throw the bill into it, it will actually burn up.
There you go. Te Pāti Māori, you want to get some advertising? Right? Take this bill, go up to Mount Ruapehu, and throw it in. You get all the likes if you do that, man. Bring the Green Party along. We'll come along. Yeah.
Margaret Davidson will carry the bill up the hill for you.
Yeah. That can be a joint project. That's fantastic advertising right there. We're going to cast it. Must be destroyed. Yep.
Yeah, you might get on the phone to Celia tomorrow morning to say we've got a potential marketing campaign that could be done.
Can we do a Lord of the Rings parody?
Yes, Lord of the Rings parody. Yeah.
I can be a dwarf. You can be one of the elves.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to Alex's second super chat, Lord Alex's super chat. Now, this one is regarding... I know. He seems to hold the record for most of them. Yeah. Just wanting to state, one of the bills that I've concerned about with the Social Security's Amendment Bill, which was passed last year and subject people on supported living payments to yearly forms. Well, it wasn't the only thing that subjected. It also sat down there and dealt with the income you can earn from borders. And I'm waiting for someone to sit down there and go in and ask working income. Yes, I got $250 a week for board for these people, but I've got these expenses back, and I'm claiming that off the deductions you make, wins, and challenge it. And if you don't like that, I will take it to the Social Security's Appeal Authority or to the High Court.
Yeah, I'm concerned. The main concern I've got with the Social Security Amendment Bill is to do with homeless populations, or populations that don't have reliable access to ways that they can contact their local WINS office, or, I'm concerned again for those that don't have the means to comply with the legislation, which are often the people that are at most need for welfare.
Yeah, and it is not easy trying to comply with much of Social Security Amendment much of the legislation, because it's an absolute minefield, because it's got a lot of loose interpretation that could mean different things. I mean, the great one was relationships. According to one case manager, 2 Tinder dates is the equivalent of what you call a fully fledged marriage.
Okay.
Yeah, because some case, so one person, this happened when it was happening under Labour. She had her benefits suspended for being in a relationship because she went on 2 dates with a person. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is a great time to advertise for, I don't know, a VPN. Can a VPN come and sponsor us?
I don't know. I feel you've given me ideas. I need to talk to someone on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to respond to Jason here. A haka would be better. There's no one saying that we can't have Lord of the Rings and a haka. We can do both.
Put the bill into Mount Ruapehu, aka Mount Doom, and send it off with a haka.
Yeah, we can have the dwarves, we can have the orcs, we can have the elves, we can have Gandalf. My dad's ready and rocking to dress up as Gandalf. He's got the beard and everything for it now.
I can see both Te Party Māori and the Greens actually having all the people. You'll have I don't know who Lawrence will end up dressing as. He'll dress up as one of the characters, but he'll be the one in charge of having to deal with everyone to cosplay.
I'm going to tell you now. Lawrence would be a hobbit. He can be a hobbit.
Got to say, height-wise, yes, that would make sense.
No, even character-wise. He's basically, he's like a hobbit.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to the bills that you can get your submissions on. The Telecommunications Amendment Bill closes this Wednesday, the 14th of January. The Telecommunication Other Matters Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday, the 14th of January. The Meteorologist Services Acquisition Policy Legislation Amendment Bill also closes on Wednesday, the 14th. The Education Training Systems Reform Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday, the 14th of January. The International Treaties Examinations was an agreement to establish the Pacific or something, closes on Wednesday, the 21st. The Public Works Amendment Bill, the bill we've just covered, closes on Tuesday, the 27th of January, one day after Auckland Anniversary Day.
I will remember to get that one done.
Yeah. The Emergency Management Bill closes on Tuesday, the 3rd of February. The Budget Policy Statement, I think a few people might want to sit there and do that. That closes on Wednesday, the 4th of January. You can put in some comments such as tax more. The Commerce, Promoting Competition and Other Matters Amendment Bill closes on Wednesday, the 4th of February, 2 days before Waitangi Day. The Planning Bill and Natural Environment Bill closes on Friday, the 13th of February. The Arms Bill closes on Monday the 16th of February, and the Crimes Amendment Bill to bring in Sonny Consider Services Arrest Accused Shoplifters closes on Monday the 16th.
I'll tell you what, on that bill, we don't need to see a bunch of Andrew Tates running around trying to take out shop theft. Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah. I will be submitting on that one because it's a bad bill.
Yeah. Any queries, gripes, groans, and moans you want to do before we head off for another week?
Nope, I want to eat dinner and I want to find my cat.
All good. I want good luck for finding Biggie.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll see you back here next Sunday for more from the Order Paper Podcast.
Thank you for watching the Order Paper, your express ticket to the New Zealand House of Representatives. every episode, we unravel the complex world of legislation, debate, and democracy. From bills to select committees, we've got it all covered. From our team of political commentators who will dissect and explain what's happened so you can remain up to date on what's happened in the Aotearoa, New Zealand Parliament. To support our channel, you can become a Patreon member at patreon.com/it'sintheballot. The Order Paper podcast is brought to you by It's in the Ballot Productions, live at 8 p.m.